I'm Meryl and I grew up in what you'd call an ordinary family. Mom and Dad were hardworking folks, trying their best to raise 2 girls. That's right, I had a younger sister, Sarah. She came into this world 5 years after me, and boy, did she shake things up. From the get-go, I was the good kid. Studied hard, got along with everyone, never caused trouble. Sarah? She was a whole different story. I remember this one time when I was 10 and Sarah was 5. We were at the grocery store with Mom and Sarah wanted some candy. "No, Sarah," Mom said firmly. "We've got plenty of snacks at home." Sarah's face turned red, "But I want it now," she screamed, throwing herself on the floor. People started staring. Mom looked embarrassed, trying to calm Sarah down. But Sarah wouldn't budge. She kicked and screamed louder, "I hate you. You never let me have anything." That was just one of many incidents. As we grew older, things didn't get better. Sarah's behavior became more erratic. She'd have these intense mood swings, going from laughing to screaming in seconds. One day, Mom and Dad took Sarah to a psychologist. When they came back, I could tell something was up. They sat me down in the living room, looking all serious. "Meryl," Dad started, "we need to talk to you about Sarah." Mom chimed in, "The doctor says Sarah has something called a DHD. It means her brain works a bit differently." I nodded, not really understanding. "Is that why she acts out all the time?" "Yes, sweetie," Mom said, "and we need your help. We have to be extra patient with Sarah now." Little did I know that conversation would set the tone for the next decade of my life. Everything became about Sarah, her needs, her moods, her outbursts. And me? I was expected to be the understanding older sister, always patient, always forgiving. But let me tell you, it wasn't easy. As Sarah's behavior got worse, my parents' attention shifted more and more towards her. They were so afraid of upsetting her that they started giving in to her every whim. Meanwhile, I was left to fend for myself. Don't get me wrong, I wasn't neglected. But compared to the constant attention Sarah got, it felt like I was invisible sometimes. As the years went by, Sarah's behavior became a roller coaster ride. One week, she'd be almost normal, helping with chores, doing her homework, even being nice to me. But it never lasted. I remember one afternoon when I was 16. I came home from school to find Sarah sitting at the kitchen table, actually doing her math homework. "Hey Sarah," I said, surprised. "How's it going?" She looked up and smiled. "Pretty good. I think I'm finally getting this algebra stuff." For a moment, I felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe things were finally turning around. But a week later, that hope was shattered. I was in my room studying when I heard a crash downstairs. Sarah was screaming at Mom. "I don't care about stupid school. You can't make me go." Then came the sound of breaking glass. I sighed and put my headphones on. Just another day in our house. When I turned 17, things got even worse. I was trying to prepare for college applications, but Sarah seemed determined to make it impossible. One evening I was at my desk, deep in a practice SAT test. Suddenly, ear-splitting music blasted through the walls. I stormed into Sarah's room. "Can you turn that down? I'm trying to study." "Boo-hoo," she mocked. "Poor Meryl needs to study." "Well, I need to listen to music. Deal with it." I went to our parents, hoping they'd intervene. But their response left me speechless. "Honey," Mom said, "you know your sister has trouble controlling herself. Try to be understanding." Dad nodded. "Maybe you could study at the library? We don't want to upset Sarah." I couldn't believe it. "But what about me? Don't my needs matter?" Mom patted my hand. "Of course they do, sweetie. But Sarah's condition makes things difficult for her. We all need to make allowances." I went back to my room, fuming. It was always about Sarah, always. A few weeks later, Sarah dropped a bombshell at dinner. "I want to go live with Grandma," she announced. Mom and Dad exchanged worried looks. "Are you sure?" honey, Mom asked. "That's a big change." Sarah nodded. "Grandma said I could come anytime. She'll let me do whatever I want." I held my breath, hardly daring to hope. To my surprise, my parents agreed. Maybe a change of scenery would be good for everyone, Dad said. As Sarah packed her bags, she cornered me in the hallway. "Don't think you're getting rid of me," she hissed. "Grandma's loaded, you know. She'll spoil me rotten and leave me everything in her will. You'll be working your ass off in college while I'm set for life." I just rolled my eyes. "Whatever, Sarah. Just go." For the next 6 months, our house was peaceful. I could finally focus on my studies without constant interruptions. I aced my SATs and got accepted into a public college in another city. I'd been in college for a few months when I got the call. It was Mom, and she sounded exhausted. "It's Sarah, she's back home. Your grandmother, she couldn't handle Sarah anymore. Said she was too disobedient, always causing trouble. She even blamed us for bad parenting. Now she won't talk to any of us." I closed my eyes, feeling a mix of frustration and pity. "I'm sorry, Mom, that must be tough." "It is," she admitted. "We're trying everything. Taking her to a new psychologist, giving her whatever she wants. We're hoping it'll help." Then came the kicker. "Meryl, sweetie, about your college expenses, we can't help you anymore. All our money is going towards Sarah's treatment and, well, her demands. You'll need to support yourself from now on." After we hung up, I just sat there trying to process it all. Once again, Sarah had managed to upend my life without even being present. But I wasn't about to let this derail me. I found a part-time job at a local diner and called my grandmother. "Of course I'll help you," dear Grandma said when I explained the situation. "It's the least I can do after everything you've been through." True to her word, Grandma started sending me money for rent and even visited me a few times. During one of her visits, we had a heart-to-heart. "You know, Meryl," she said, sipping her tea, "I feel guilty about Sarah. I thought I could handle her, but still I'm glad I can help you. You deserve it, sweetheart." Those years in college were tough, but also liberating. For the first time, I was free from Sarah's shadow. I made friends, studied hard, and even started dating a bit. After graduation, I landed a job in the same city and decided to stay. It felt good to have my own life, away from the chaos at home. I did visit my parents occasionally, but Sarah was never around. One time I asked Mom about her. "Oh, she's out with friends," Mom said, wringing her hands. "She's been gone for days now. We can barely keep track of her anymore." Dad chimed in, always with different boys too. "There's Jake, or was it John? And then there's that Mike fellow." I raised an eyebrow. "And you're okay with this?" Mom shrugged helplessly. "What can we do? It's just how she is. The psychologist says it's part of her condition." I bit my tongue to keep from saying what I really thought. It was always excuses with them when it came to Sarah. During another visit, I found Mom crying in the kitchen. "What's wrong?" I asked, alarmed. She wiped her eyes. "It's Sarah. She's been gone for 2 weeks this time. We don't know where she is or who she's with." I felt a pang of worry, despite everything. "Have you called the police?" Dad shook his head. "We did once before. She came back on her own and was furious with us for reporting her missing. Said we were trying to control her life." I left that day feeling frustrated and sad. It was clear that nothing had changed. Sarah was still the center of their world, no matter how badly she behaved. As I drove back to my apartment, I couldn't help but feel grateful for the life I'd built for myself. It wasn't perfect, but it was mine. Time flies when you're building your own life. Before I knew it, 3 years had passed since I'd graduated college. I was settling into my career, making new friends, and finally feeling like I had some stability. Then came the phone call that threw me for a loop. "Meryl? It's Mom. You'll never guess what's happened. Sarah's getting married." I nearly dropped the phone. "Married? Sarah?" Mom's voice was brimming with excitement. "Yes, can you believe it? She just told us. The wedding's in 2 months. You'll come, won't you?" Still in shock, I agreed. The day of the wedding arrived, and I flew back home. As I helped Sarah get ready, she dropped another bombshell. "Mom and Dad are paying for our honeymoon," she said smugly. 2 weeks in Bali. First class all the way. I bit my tongue. Of course they were. That's nice of them, I managed. Sarah smirked. Well, they owe me. After all the crap I've been through. I wanted to point out that most of that crap was of her own making, but I held back. It was her wedding day, after all. When I finally met Sarah's fiancé, Mark, I was taken aback. He was nothing like I'd imagined. Tall, handsome, and at least 10 years older than Sarah, he exuded an air of calm confidence. It's great to finally meet you, Meryl, he said, shaking my hand. Sarah's told me so much about you. I raised an eyebrow at Sarah, wondering what exactly she'd told him. To my surprise, the wedding went off without a hitch. Sarah looked radiant, and for once, she seemed genuinely happy. As I watched them exchange vows, I felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe this really would be the turning point for her. At the reception, Mom cornered me by the punch bowl. Isn't this wonderful, Meryl, she gushed. Sarah's really landed on her feet. Mark's so successful, and he clearly adores her. I nodded, sipping my drink. It's great, Mom. I'm happy for her. Then came the kicker. You know, sweetie, maybe it's time you started thinking about settling down too. You're not getting any younger. I nearly choked on my punch. Mom, I'm only 26. She patted my arm. I know, dear. But look at Sarah. She's really got it all figured out now. As I flew back to my city the next day, I couldn't shake a nagging feeling. Despite everything, I genuinely hoped Sarah had found happiness. But a small part of me wondered how long it would last. Life went on. I threw myself into work, trying not to dwell on my family's dynamics. Then, about a year after Sarah's wedding, something unexpected happened. I met someone. His name was Tom, and we hit it off immediately. He was kind, funny, and actually listened when I talked. For the first time, I felt like I'd found someone who saw me for who I really was. 2 years flew by in a whirlwind of dates, laughter, and deepening love. Then, on a crisp autumn evening, Tom got down on one knee and asked me to marry him. As I said yes, tears of joy streaming down my face, I felt like my life was finally falling into place. Planning my wedding to Tom was like a dream. For once, I was the center of attention, and it felt amazing. I was determined to make it perfect, a day that was all about us and our love. Of course, I invited my family. Despite everything, they were still my parents, and Sarah was still my sister. I hoped that maybe, just maybe, this happy occasion would bring us all together. When Sarah showed up at the venue, she was alone. I felt a knot form in my stomach. Where's Mark? I asked, trying to keep my tone light. Sarah shrugged. Couldn't make it. Is everything okay? I pressed. It's fine, she snapped. Can we drop it? I backed off, not wanting to start an argument on my wedding day. But later, I overheard Mom and Dad talking in hushed tones. I'm worried about Sarah and Mark, Mom was saying. They're fighting all the time now. But it's not her fault, she's just high-spirited. Mark needs to be more understanding. I walked away, shaking my head. Some things never change. The ceremony was beautiful, everything I'd dreamed of. Tom's eyes shone with love as we said our vows, and for a while I forgot all about the family drama. But at the reception, Sarah made sure she couldn't be ignored. She got drunk, loudly flirted with Tom's friends, and even tried to give a speech that quickly devolved into a rant about how unfair her life had been. I gritted my teeth and plastered on a smile, determined not to let her ruin my day. Tom, bless him, stuck by my side, squeezing my hand supportively. As Sarah was dragged off the dance floor by our embarrassed parents, I made a silent vow to myself. This was the last time I'd let her drama overshadow my life. For a while, it seemed like I might actually keep that vow. Tom and I settled into married life, and I heard little from my family beyond the occasional phone call. Then, almost exactly a year after our wedding, my phone rang. It was Mom, and she was crying. Meryl, it's Sarah. Mark left her. Between sobs, Mom explained. Mark had found out about Sarah's multiple affairs and filed for divorce. She was devastated, they said. Acting out worse than ever. We don't know what to do, Mom wailed. The psychologist says she needs a change of scenery, some time away to heal. I knew what was coming before she said it. Honey, we were hoping. Could Sarah stay with you for a while? Remember how we sent her to your grandmother's so you could study for your exams? We need your help now. I closed my eyes, feeling the familiar weight of family obligations settling on my shoulders. Let me talk to Tom, I said finally. After I hung up, I sat Tom down and explained the situation. He listened patiently, his brow furrowed with concern, but finally agreed. Sarah arrived on a Tuesday, looking like a shadow of her former self. Her eyes were puffy from crying, and she barely spoke above a whisper. For the first time in years, I felt a genuine pang of sympathy for my little sister. Come on, I said gently, leading her to the guest room. Let's get you settled in. Tom was amazing those first few days. He cooked Sarah's favorite meals, engaged her in light conversation, and even took a day off work to help us go shopping for some new clothes to cheer her up. But as the saying goes, no good deed goes unpunished. About a week into Sarah's stay, I started noticing changes. Small things at first, a lingering look here, an accidental brush against Tom there. I tried to brush it off as my imagination running wild. Then one day I came home from work to find Sarah parading around the living room in what could barely be called underwear. Tom was sitting on the couch, looking incredibly uncomfortable. Sarah, I exclaimed. What are you doing? She turned, feigning innocence. Oh, hi Meryl, I was just about to take a shower. It's so hot today, isn't it, Tom? Tom mumbled something incoherent and practically ran from the room. That night, I confronted Sarah. Look, I know you're going through a tough time, but you need to respect our home and our marriage. She rolled her eyes. God, Meryl, don't be such a prude. I was just trying to cool off. I didn't buy it for a second, but I let it go. Big mistake. Over the next few days, Sarah's behavior became more and more brazen. She'd accidentally walk in on Tom in the bathroom, or bend over suggestively when he was around. I was at my wit's end. Then came the day that broke the camel's back. I came home early from work, a migraine pounding behind my eyes. As I approached our apartment, I heard Sarah's voice, loud and clear. Come on, Tom, Meryl never has to know. Don't you want to have some real fun for once? I burst through the door to find Sarah pressed up against my husband, her hands on his chest. Tom looked horrified. Meryl, he exclaimed, pushing Sarah away. This isn't what it looks like. Sarah spun around, a look of faux shock on her face. Oh my God, Meryl, I'm so embarrassed. I just tripped and Tom caught me. I saw red. Get out, I said, my voice dangerously low. Pack your things and get the hell out of my house. Now. Sarah's face contorted with rage. Fine, I never wanted to stay in this dump anyway. You're pathetic, Meryl. Always so boring, so frigid. She turned to Tom, who was standing there in shock. You could do so much better than her, you know. A hot piece like me instead of Ice Queen Meryl. I grabbed her arm and dragged her to the guest room. You have 5 minutes to pack, or I'm throwing your stuff out the window. As Sarah scrambled to gather her things, hurling insults the whole time, I turned to Tom. He looked devastated. Meryl, I swear nothing happened. She's been trying for days, but I would never. I cut him off with a hug. I know. I trust you. I'm so sorry I put you through this. We held each other as we listened to Sarah's continued tirade. Finally, she emerged from the room, suitcase in hand. You'll regret this, she spat. Both of you. As the door slammed behind her, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. As we stood there in our now quiet apartment, I realized something. The family I'd spent my whole life trying to please, trying to fix, they weren't my real family anymore. Tom was. And it was time I started putting our life, our marriage, first. I hadn't even finished my first cup of coffee the next morning when my phone rang. It was Mom. I braced myself and answered. How could you, Meryl? Mom's voice was shrill with anger. Kicking your own sister out onto the street. I thought we raised you better than that. I took a deep breath. Mom, it's not what you think. But she cut me off. Sarah told us everything. How you got jealous because she and Tom were getting along. How you made up lies about her to justify throwing her out. I'm so disappointed in you. My jaw dropped. What? Mom, that's not true at all. Sarah tried to seduce Tom. She was walking around half naked, throwing herself at him. She even propositioned him. There was a pause. Then Dad's voice came on the line. Now, Meryl, don't you think you're exaggerating a bit? We know Sarah has her issues, but she's family, and family supports each other, no matter what. Something inside me snapped. Years of pent-up frustration and resentment came pouring out. Support? Where was your support when I was trying to study for college and Sarah was making my life hell? Where was your support when you cut me off financially because you were too busy catering to Sarah's every whim? I spent my entire life trying to understand and make allowances for Sarah. And I'm done. I'm done being the responsible one, the one who always has to sacrifice. You raised her to be this way, and now you can deal with the consequences. There was a stunned silence on the other end of the line. Then Dad spoke, his voice cold. If that's how you feel, maybe it's best we don't speak for a while. And don't be surprised if the rest of the family feels the same way once they hear about this. I laughed bitterly. Is that supposed to be a threat? Go ahead. Tell them whatever version of the story makes you feel better about your parenting failures. I hung up. True to my parents' word, the calls started coming in. Aunts, uncles, cousins, all of them expressing their shock and disappointment in my cruel treatment of Sarah. How could you abandon your sister in her time of need? My Aunt Linda scolded. I always knew you were jealous of Sarah, but this is a new low. Cousin Mike messaged me. I tried explaining the truth to the first few, but it quickly became clear that their minds were made up. Sarah and my parents had spun a tale of my jealousy and cruelty, and the family had lapped it up. The final straw came when I logged onto Facebook. There, in black and white, was a post from Sarah. Heartbroken. My own sister threw me out when I needed her most. I guess blood isn't always thicker than water. Family drama betrayed. The comments were a cesspool of family members and old acquaintances expressing their sympathy for Sarah and their disgust with me. My finger hovered over the keyboard. I could respond, tell my side of the story. But what was the point? They'd already made up their minds. With a heavy heart, I began blocking numbers and unfriending relatives on social media. It hurt, cutting ties with people I'd known my whole life. But as I looked over at Tom, who had stayed by my side through all of this, I knew I was making the right choice. In the weeks that followed the fallout with my family, I felt like I was walking through a fog. The pain of being ostracized by my own relatives was raw and ever-present. But amidst the darkness, there was one beacon of light: my grandmother. Meryl, dear, she said during one of our weekly phone calls, I want you to know that I believe you. I know Sarah, and I know you. You did the right thing. Tears welled up in my eyes. Thanks, Grandma. You don't know how much that means to me. She chuckled softly. Oh, I think I do. Now tell me about your week. How's that wonderful husband of yours? And just like that, life went on. Tom and I settled into a peaceful routine, free from the drama that had plagued us for so long. We traveled, pursued our careers, and even started talking about starting a family of our own. Months passed, then a year. I heard snippets about my family through the grapevine. Sarah had moved back in with our parents, apparently unable to support herself after the divorce. But I pushed those thoughts aside, focusing on my own life. Then, on a quiet Sunday afternoon, my phone rang. It was a number I hadn't seen in over a year: my parents. Against my better judgment, I answered. Hello. Meryl, it was my mother, her voice choked with tears. Meryl, we need your help. A familiar weight settled in my stomach. What's wrong? Between sobs, she explained. Sarah had spiraled out of control. She was bringing strange men home, throwing wild parties, and had even physically threatened our parents when they tried to intervene. She kicked us out. Meryl, Dad's voice came on the line. We're staying at a motel. We don't know what to do. Can you come talk to her? Maybe she'll listen to you? I closed my eyes, feeling a mix of emotions wash over me: anger, pity, frustration, but mostly I felt nothing. "No," I said quietly. "I can't." "But Meryl," Mom started. I cut her off. "No, Mom, I'm done. I've spent my entire life cleaning up Sarah's messes, making excuses for her behavior, and when I finally stood up for myself, you all turned your backs on me. This is your problem now. You raised her, you enabled her. Now you have to deal with the consequences." Before they could respond, I hung up. Then, with a sense of finality, I blocked their numbers. Tom found me on the couch a little while later, staring into space. "Everything okay?" he asked, concern in his voice. I looked up at him and smiled. Really smiled. "You know what? It is. For the first time in my life, I think everything is actually okay." As we sat there, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. Yes, I had lost the family I was born into. But I had gained so much more. I had Tom, my rock and my partner. I had my grandmother who loved me unconditionally. And most importantly, I had myself stronger and more self-assured than ever before. The next day, I called my grandmother. "Hey, Grandma, how would you like to come visit for a while? Tom and I were thinking of redecorating the guest room, and we could use your expert eye." Her joy was palpable through the phone. "Oh, Meryl, I'd love to. When should I come?" As I hung up, making plans for my grandmother's visit, I realized something. This was what family should be. People who support you, love you, and bring joy to your life.
I'm Audrey, and I've always been the second best in my family. My sister, Sarah, is 5 years older than me and has always been the golden child. From the moment I can remember, everything in our house revolved around her. Sarah got the best of everything, and I got the leftovers. She went to some fancy private school while I was stuck in the local public one. Don't get me wrong, my parents made good money, but apparently not enough for both of us to have nice things. I discovered my love for drawing when I was about 8. I'd spend hours sketching in my room, trying to capture the world around me on paper. When I showed my parents my drawings, hoping they'd be proud, Dad just shrugged. "That's nice, Audrey, but don't waste too much time on it. You need to focus on getting a real job someday. You're not as academically inclined as your sister." Those words stung, but I didn't let them stop me. I started looking up drawing tutorials online, using my allowance to buy cheap art supplies. I'd hide in my room, painting and sketching, dreaming of the day I could show the world my art. Meanwhile, Sarah was the star of the family. Mom and Dad threw money at her like it was going out of style. Dance lessons, acting classes, singing tutors, you name it, Sarah tried it. And gave up on it, usually within a few months. "I'm just not feeling the dance vibe anymore," Sarah announced one day, tossing her ballet shoes in the trash. "I think I want to try photography now." Without missing a beat, Mom said, "Of course, sweetie. We'll get you the best camera and a new laptop for editing. Maybe we can convert the spare room into a darkroom for you." I couldn't believe my ears. Here I was, begging for a few dollars for paintbrushes, while Sarah got an entire room for her latest whim. But that's how it always was in our house. The only person who seemed to see me was Grandma Helen, Mom's mother. She lived nearby in a cozy little house, and visiting her became my escape. One day, she caught me sketching in her garden. Well, she said, peering over my shoulder. "Looks like we've got a regular Picasso here." For the first time, someone looked at my art and saw potential. Grandma Helen's eyes sparkled as she hatched a plan. "How about we set up a little studio for you here? I've got that spare room upstairs that's just collecting dust." Before I knew it, Grandma had transformed that dusty old room into an artist's paradise. She bought me an easel, real artist quality paints, and even signed me up for private lessons with a local artist. As the years rolled by, the gap between Sarah and me only widened. Our living room turned into a shrine to Sarah's so-called achievements. A massive display case dominated the wall, crammed with her certificates, ribbons, and trophies. Most of them were participation awards, but you'd think she'd won Olympic gold the way our parents fawned over them. One day, I timidly approached Mom with a small painting I'd done. It had just won first place in a local art competition. "Hey, Mom? I was wondering if maybe we could put this up somewhere." Mom barely glanced at it. "Oh, that's nice, honey. But where would we put it? The wall's already full of Sarah's things. Maybe you can keep it in your room?" I retreated, clutching my painting. My room became my gallery, walls plastered with artwork that no one but me and Grandma Helen ever saw. When Sarah graduated high school, you'd have thought royalty was going off to college. Mom and Dad spared no expense, sending her to the most prestigious university they could find. They even rented her a luxury apartment near campus. With Sarah gone, you'd think I'd get more attention. Fat chance. Mom and Dad spent hours every day video chatting with her, cooing over her latest adventures. Meanwhile, I was lucky if they remembered I existed at dinner time. Then, like a hurricane, Sarah burst back into our lives. She'd barely graduated when she showed up on our doorstep with a guy in tow. "Mom, Dad," she squealed. "Meet Jake, my husband." Mom and Dad, instead of asking the obvious questions, like, "Oh, I don't know," why they weren't invited to the wedding, just embraced them both. "Oh, sweetie, we're so happy for you," Mom gushed. "Welcome to the family, son." Dad slapped Jake on the back. I stood in the background, invisible as always. Congrats, I guess," I muttered. Sarah barely acknowledged me. "Thanks. Oh, by the way, Jake's going to be living with us for a while." "That's cool, right?" Before I could process what was happening, Jake was moving his stuff into our guest room. Just like that, our household dynamic shifted again. 2 months flew by in a blur of awkward family dinners and tense silences. Sarah and Jake had taken over the house like a pair of entitled royals, and I was counting down the days until I could escape to college. Then, one evening, Dad called me into the living room. "Audrey, we need to talk." My stomach dropped. Nothing good ever came from those words in this house. Mom and Dad sat on the couch, with Sarah and Jake lounging nearby. I perched on the edge of an armchair, feeling like I was facing a firing squad. Dad cleared his throat. "Audrey, you know we've been saving for your college fund." I nodded, a glimmer of hope rising in my chest. Maybe they were finally going to do right by me. "Well," he continued, "we've decided to give that money to Sarah instead." The world stopped. I must have misheard. "What?" Mom jumped in, her voice sickly sweet. "Sweetie, Sarah needs it more. She's married now, starting a family. We have to think about their future." I looked at Sarah, who couldn't even meet my eyes. Jake just smirked. The injustice of it all hit me like a tidal wave. "Are you kidding me? You've given Sarah everything her whole life, and now you're taking away the one thing you promised me?" "Watch your tone, young lady," Mom snapped. "You should be grateful we're not charging you rent for living here and eating our food all these years." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Grateful? For doing the bare minimum as parents? Dad stood up, his face red. "That's enough. You're an adult now, Audrey, it's time you started acting like one." He disappeared into the hallway and returned with a new suitcase. He dropped it at my feet with a thud that echoed through my soul. "Consider this your graduation gift," he said coldly. "Pack your things and get out, tonight." I looked at each of them in turn, Dad's stern face, Mom's averted eyes, Sarah's guilty expression, Jake's smug grin. Not one of them spoke up for me. In that moment, something inside me broke. And in its place, a steely resolve took root. Without a word, I grabbed the suitcase and marched to my room. As I threw my belongings into it, I could hear Sarah's excited chatter through the wall. "Oh my God, Jake. We can turn Audrey's room into my walk-in closet. I've always wanted one of those." Tears stung my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. I wouldn't give them the satisfaction. In less than an hour, I had packed up 18 years of my life. I took one last look around the room that had been my sanctuary, my prison. Then, without saying goodbye, I walked out the front door. I stumbled up to Grandma Helen's porch, dragging my suitcase behind me. Before I could even knock, the door flew open, and there she was, arms outstretched. "Oh, Audrey," she said, pulling me into a fierce hug. "I'm so sorry, sweetheart." I broke down then, ugly sobs racking my body as Grandma held me. She guided me inside, sat me on her worn but comfortable couch, and listened as I poured out the whole sordid tale. When I finished, Grandma's eyes were blazing. "Those fools," she muttered. Then she took my hands in hers. "Audrey, listen to me. You're staying here, and we're going to figure this out together." I slept fitfully that night, but when I came downstairs the next morning, Grandma was at the kitchen table, surrounded by papers and her laptop. "Sit down," she said, pushing a mug of coffee towards me. "We're planning your college education, I'm paying for it. Now, let's find you a proper art school." Over the next few weeks, Grandma and I pored over college brochures and websites. We finally settled on a prestigious art school a few hours away. I gathered my best paintings and drawings, carefully photographing each one for my portfolio. I wrote and rewrote my personal essay, pouring my heart onto the page. Grandma helped me collect glowing recommendations from my art teachers. Finally, we sent it all off. The waiting was excruciating, but Grandma kept me busy, encouraging me to paint and even setting up a small exhibition of my work in her garden for the neighbors. Then, on a sunny Tuesday afternoon, the email arrived. I stared at my phone, too nervous to open it. "Well?" Grandma prompted. With trembling fingers, I tapped the screen. My eyes scanned the first line, and I let out a scream of joy. "I got in!" I shouted, jumping up and down. "Grandma, I got in!" From the moment I set foot on campus, I threw myself into every opportunity. I joined the art club, volunteered at gallery openings, and spent countless hours in the studios, honing my craft. My first art competition was terrifying, but when I won third place, the rush was indescribable. I called Grandma immediately, and I could hear the pride in her voice. "Just the beginning," she said. "Keep going." So I did. I entered more competitions, each one boosting my confidence. I started participating in exhibitions for young artists, seeing my work displayed alongside my peers. For the first time in my life, I felt seen. Professors praised my unique style, classmates asked for collaborations, and I even started selling a few pieces. But it wasn't just about the art. I made friends, real friends who valued me for who I was. I joined study groups, went to parties, and even started dating a fellow artist named Ethan. Late one night, as I was putting the finishing touches on a painting for my midterm project, I realized something. All of this, was what I'd been yearning for my whole life. The freedom to express myself, to grow, to be valued for my talents and my personality. Graduation day arrived in a blur of black gowns and flying mortarboards. I landed a job at a local art gallery, arranging exhibits by day and pouring my soul onto canvas by night. It wasn't glamorous, I was basically a glorified clerk, but it was a foot in the door of the art world. "Hey, Audrey," my boss, Frank, called out one day. "We've got a spare wall next week. Want to hang some of your stuff?" I nearly dropped the sculpture I was carrying. "Are you serious?" He shrugged. "Why not? Your stuff's good. Might as well see if it sells." That little display changed everything. A couple of my paintings sold, then a few more. Soon, I was participating in local exhibitions, my name starting to buzz in art circles. Then came the fantasy series. It started as a fever dream, strange, whimsical creatures dancing across my canvas. I painted them obsessively, creating a whole world of odd, lovable beings. At one exhibition, a man in a sharp suit approached me. "Ms. Thompson? I'm from Dreamscape Animations. We're very interested in your work." Before I knew it, I was signing a contract. They wanted to turn my creatures into a cartoon. The day the first episode aired, Grandma and I sat glued to her TV, clutching each other's hands. That's my little Gribble," I squealed as one of my creations waddled across the screen. The show was a hit. Suddenly, everyone wanted a piece of Audrey Thompson's art. The animation studio commissioned a comic series, which I drew with giddy enthusiasm. As my reputation grew, so did the price tags on my paintings. It was surreal, watching collectors bid on my work like it was precious treasure. Frank, my boss at the gallery, pulled me aside one day. "Audrey, you're outgrowing us. How about we do a solo exhibition for you? Your own show, your rules." I threw myself into preparation, creating new pieces and carefully selecting from my existing work. The night of the opening, I stood in the gallery, surrounded by my art and a buzzing crowd. "Quite a turnout," a familiar voice said. I turned to see Frank, grinning. "Listen, kid, you're going places. How about I manage you full-time? We could really take your career to the next level." From that moment, everything accelerated. With Frank's connections and my creativity, we were unstoppable. My paintings hung in prestigious galleries, my name featured in art magazines. Through it all, Grandma Helen was my constant. She came to every exhibition, beaming with pride and offering words of encouragement. "Remember when you used to hide your drawings under your bed," she said one night as we celebrated another successful show. "Look at you now, setting the art world on fire." I hugged her tight, overwhelmed with gratitude. "I couldn't have done it without you, Grandma. You believed in me when no one else did." As we clinked our champagne glasses, I marveled at how far I'd come. From the unwanted second child to a rising star in the art world. But even with all the success, the best part was having Grandma by my side, sharing every triumph and setback. One day I burst into Grandma Helen's kitchen, my mind buzzing with ideas. "Grandma, you won't believe what Frank and I have planned. We're thinking of a cross-country tour, showcasing my work in major cities. And there's talk of an international exhibition in Paris next year." Grandma listened, her eyes twinkling with pride. But as I paused for breath, she reached out and took my hand. "Audrey, darling, I'm so proud of you. You've become such an accomplished young woman. But I think it might be time to consider reconciling with your parents." I wanted to argue, but the look in her eyes stopped me. This was important to her. A week later, I found myself standing on the doorstep of my childhood home, my heart pounding. Mom answered the door, her eyes widening in surprise. "Audrey," she said, her voice uncertain. "What are you doing here?" Dad appeared behind her, his face unreadable. "Well, don't just stand there. Come in, I suppose." The house hadn't changed much, but the atmosphere was heavy, oppressive. They grudgingly allowed me to stay for a few days, but it was clear I wasn't welcome. To my surprise, Sarah was still living at home. "Jake's gone," she said bitterly when I asked. "Mom and Dad kicked him out. Said he was a lazy bum." I bit back a retort about their double standards. This visit wasn't about settling old scores. Days crawled by in uncomfortable silence. Mom and Dad barely spoke to me, their faces constantly pinched with disapproval. I was about ready to call it quits when Sarah cornered me in the kitchen. "So," she said, a familiar mocking tone in her voice, "what are you up to these days? Still doodling?" Something snapped inside me. I straightened up, meeting her gaze. "Actually, I'm one of the most popular and well-paid young artists in the country right now." The kitchen fell silent. I turned to see Mom and Dad frozen in the doorway. Suddenly, their entire demeanor changed. Mom's eyes lit up with a greedy gleam I'd seen directed at Sarah so many times before. "Oh, Audrey," she cooed, trying to take my arm. "Why didn't you tell us? We've been so worried about you." I jerked away from her touch. "I was just leaving, actually." No, Dad interjected. "Stay. Tell us more about your work. How much do your paintings sell for?" I shook my head. "That's confidential information." His face hardened. "Now listen here, young lady. We're your parents. We have a right to know." After all we've done for you, you owe us. And there it was. The true colors I knew had been there all along. I don't owe you anything, I said quietly. You kicked me out, remember? You chose Sarah over me at every turn. And now that I'm successful, you want a piece of it? No, I'm done. I brushed past them, ignoring their protests and demands. I threw my things into my bag and walked out the door, their angry voices fading behind me. When I told Grandma what happened, she smiled sadly. Oh, Audrey, I'm sorry it went that way. But I'm proud of you for trying. As I drove home that night, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. I'd given them a chance, more than they deserved. Now I could move forward, guilt-free, focusing on the people who truly cared about me and the art that had saved me. That call came on a rainy Tuesday morning. Grandma Helen was in the hospital. I dropped everything and rushed to her side, my heart in my throat. For weeks, I barely left her room. I held her hand, told her stories, and tried to repay a fraction of the love and support she'd given me over the years. But in the end, she was gone. I threw myself into organizing the funeral, grateful for the distraction from my grief. It was a beautiful service, filled with people whose lives Grandma Helen had touched. I stood alone by her grave long after everyone else had left, feeling more lost than I had in years. 2 weeks later, I received a call from a notary. Ms. Thompson, we need to discuss your grandmother's will. I sat in the sterile office, numb, as the lawyer read out the details. And to my beloved granddaughter, Audrey Thompson, I leave all my worldly possessions, including my house and savings. I couldn't believe it. Grandma Helen had left me everything. I was just starting to find my footing again when Sarah showed up on my doorstep. Audrey, she said, her eyes red-rimmed. I need your help. I'm pregnant. I left Mom and Dad, I couldn't take their nagging anymore. But now I have nowhere to go, no money. I listened, a mix of pity and suspicion churning in my gut. Sarah, I'm sorry you're in this situation, but what do you expect me to do? Give me my share, she demanded. I need Grandma's money. I shook my head. There is no your share, Sarah. Grandma left everything to me. Her face contorted with rage. That's not fair. You must have tricked her, you thief. I'll take you to court, you'll see. I slammed the door, my hands shaking. But it wasn't over. The next day, Mom called. Audrey, be reasonable, she wheedled. Your sister needs help. We're family, you owe us. I don't owe you anything, I replied, my voice ice cold. You kicked me out, remember? Where was your sense of family then? I hung up. But they weren't done. Suddenly, my social media was flooded with accusations. Posts from my parents, aunts, uncles, cousins, all claiming I'd manipulated Grandma Helen, that I was a thief who'd stolen their rightful inheritance. Then came the rumors of a lawsuit. Apparently, Sarah and my parents had gone to a lawyer, convinced they could challenge the will. But as quickly as the rumors started, they died down. The law was clear, Grandma Helen's will was ironclad. Through it all, I clung to Grandma's last words to me. Be strong. Keep painting your dreams. And that's exactly what I did. I poured my pain and anger into my art, creating some of my most powerful pieces yet. 2 years flew by in a whirlwind of color and creativity. My paintings hung in prestigious galleries across the country, my name was featured in art magazines, and I even did a few TV interviews. It was surreal, seeing my face on the screen, talking about my journey and my art. But even as I reveled in my success, a shadow lurked at the edges of my life. Despite their failed attempts to challenge Grandma's will, my parents and Sarah hadn't given up their campaign of harassment. I'd learned to ignore it, to focus on my art and the positive relationships in my life. Then came the night of my biggest exhibition yet. The gallery was packed, the atmosphere electric. I stood in the center of the room, surrounded by my latest works, feeling on top of the world. Audrey, darling, this is your best show yet, Frank gushed, clapping me on the back. That's when I saw them. Mom and Dad, pushing through the crowd, their faces twisted with rage. Before I could react, Mom had uncapped a can of paint and flung it at my centerpiece. "Thief!" Dad bellowed as the red paint dripped down the protective glass. "She stole our money." The room erupted into chaos. Security guards rushed in, wrestling my parents towards the exit. Guests whispered and pointed, their shocked faces illuminated by camera flashes. I stood frozen, my heart pounding. This was supposed to be my moment of triumph, and they'd turned it into a circus. As the guards escorted my parents out, Mom's shrill voice echoed through the gallery. "She tricked her grandmother. That money should have been ours." The exhibition was effectively over. Even though the paintings were undamaged, thanks to their protective coverings, the mood was shattered. As I watched the last guests trickle out, something inside me hardened. Enough was enough. The next morning, I marched into a lawyer's office. "I want a restraining order," I said, my voice steady. "And I want to sue for defamation." I laid out everything: the social media harassment, the threatening messages, the scene at the gallery. The lawyer listened, his expression grave. "We have a strong case," he assured me. "They've gone too far." The legal process was grueling, but I stood my ground. In the end, the judge ruled in my favor. My parents and Sarah were legally barred from contacting me, or coming near me or my property. The defamation suit was settled out of court, with a public retraction of their claims. As I left the courthouse, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. For the first time in years, I could breathe freely. In the months that followed, I threw myself into my work with renewed passion. I traveled the world, finding inspiration in bustling cities and quiet villages alike. My exhibitions became events, celebrated in the art world and beyond. But more than the fame or the money, I found joy in giving back. I started a program offering free art classes to kids from low-income families, remembering how art had been my lifeline. Years have passed since that day in court. I haven't spoken to my parents or Sarah since, and I don't intend to. Some bridges, once burned, are better left in ashes. But I'm not bitter. I'm grateful. Grateful for Grandma Helen, who believed in me when no one else did. Grateful for the struggles that shaped me and the triumphs that followed.